BYoungMinistry.com, to another blog and to another podcast. Today we're in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 6, which reads, "For I am already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time for my departure is near." That's 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 6. In 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 6 through 8, the Apostle Paul writes his own commentary on his own life. He sums up his life, past, present, and future. He does it with an economy of words that is known only to the genius of a writer who is walking with God. In these very few words, he delivers a gargantuan amount of messages. In today's text, verse 6, he reveals the activity of God in his life at the present. In verse 7, he pulls back the curtain on the past. And in verse 8, he reveals to us the future that is awaiting him. Today, we are just considering verse 6, the present, the close of Paul's life on earth. In verse 6, we read again, "For I am already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time for my departure is near." With the completion of the writing of 2 Timothy, the Apostle Paul's work on earth was complete. The end has come for him. In these famous words, he describes the disposition of a man who has walked with the Lord for a long time. Paul wrote, "I am all ready." He knew that the end was near. However, he did not tremble at the prospect of death. The words poured out in departure tell of his faith and confidence in the Lord Jesus. This is a faith made strong by God's truth and grace. Necessary for a strengthened faith is the presence of pain. Paul's pain served him well, for it enabled him to see God increasingly with his heart. The words poured out come from the drink offering in the Old Testament. In order to understand the drink offering, I point you back to Numbers chapter 15, where we learn that the children of Israel were wandering in the wilderness. Their sin limited their relationship with God. So in order to deal with Israel's sin, God gave them his sacrificial system, which pointed them to the coming of the Lord Jesus, who is the epitome of the sacrificial lamb. God, through Moses, set out to help Israel by dealing with their sin through the death of a lamb on an annual basis. If God had ignored sin and had he not exacted judgment on it, his righteousness would have been undermined and rendered void. These offerings were designed to make it possible for the people of Israel to have a relationship with God, and that through their relationship with him, they would grow in his wisdom and faithfulness. One of the offerings in the sacrificial system alluded to earlier was the drink offering, which was given in connection with the burnt offering, which was God's way and the only way to forgive their sin. The drink offering was the drink offering was the sign that the burnt offering had already been given. The Apostle Paul uses these offerings to teach what was happening in his life. In effect, he was saying here in today's text, "I've given myself as a living sacrifice, and I have poured out my life as a final act of my complete dedication to the Lord. I've already poured out my life in the drink offering." The apostle saw himself and his ministry as the drink offering. This was the consummate act of his faith. This offering was not made for the forgiveness of anybody's sin. It was made for the furtherance of the gospel. And you and I are among many beneficiaries of the apostle's sacrifice. Poured out means to be offered on behalf of others to God. Paul used the same picture in Philippians chapter 2, verses 7 and 8. In effect, Paul was saying, Caesar is not going to kill me. I'm going to give my life as a sacrifice to Jesus Christ. I have been a living sacrifice, serving him since the day I was saved. Now, I will complete that sacrifice by laying down my life for him. The word departure means to draw up the anchor and set sail. Paul looked at death as a release from this world, an opportunity to enter into eternity. Departure also means to take down a tent. This parallels 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 1 through 8, where Paul compared the death of believers to the taking down of a tent in order to receive a permanent, glorified body. Departure also has the meaning of loosening a prisoner. Paul was facing release, not execution. Paul had been in hard service for many years. Now, his master would unyoke him and promote him to higher service. In this departing statement, there is an amazing note of triumph detected. Even though Paul was hurting over the state of the church in Ephesus, he faces death triumphantly. The apostle has demonstrated what it looks like to have been trained and made strong by the grace and truth of God. There was no bitterness in Paul, even though he was deserted by the people who were the beneficiaries of his sacrifice. Like Paul, as we look at our present tense, the choice to be a drink offering is before us. Like Paul, we have the choice. Will there come a time when we can say with Paul, the time for my departure is near? The word time here is kairos. It has to do with season rather than hours. He was saying, in effect, this is the time of my death. Not necessarily in the next few minutes or the next few hours or even the next few days. But I know the end is near and I am ready. Only those who have been granted more than just a glimpse of the other side through an intimate personal relationship with the Lord Jesus can say, I am ready. Finally, the Apostle Paul could have chosen to deny his faith in the Lord Jesus, and as a result, he could have avoided his pain and his death. But he didn't, because he knew what was really real. This world that you and I live in is but a shadow of what is to come. And it was not that Paul was earning heaven, but since he realized what was really real, he chose to invest in it. He understood that our justification is that moment we were awakened to the reality of God. And he also knew that our sanctification is being made aware that investing in God's kingdom, in the kingdom to come, is most paramount. My friends, I trust this blog and this podcast are helpful to you in your walk with the Lord. If I can be of further assistance to you, shoot me an email at BYoungMinistry@gmail.com. Hey, have a great day.